The opinions expressed in the following podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security or investment product. It is only intended to provide education and entertainment about the financial industry and the stock market. Enjoy.
On this episode of Pennies Going In Raw, Hugh brags about being right on SPY, and we also talk about wearing Speedos to Miami, the newest PR on CEI.
You find out life's this game of pennies.
Oh, you guys know we only have a 40% runner. Hello, 40% is a fucking killing.
We've been compliant for too long. It's time we go to war.
I don't have a Roth.
Hugh knows so much about the market that his brain doesn't have enough room for grammar.
Hey, who told me about IDEX? It's going up a shit ton now.
Rob, 4%, baby. No way. 4 fucking percent.
You asked the exact same question with 2 words different.
It's like, man, I just got dick whipped for like 20%, and now that f***er's up like 50.
I bet Warren Buffett never did that.
I'm just making this voice memo to call out unusual whales to a fight.
The pennies we need are everywhere around us.
Pennies.
Going in raw.
Featuring Dan, Deity Dips, and Hugh Honey.
Produced by Vinny.
And Christian.
Let's go, baby.
Welcome back to another episode of Pennies Going In Raw. Today is Wednesday, September the 22nd, and you said it last week. Everyone, is trying to take credit for, I've been calling this pullback. Well, yeah, everyone's been calling for a pullback, but you called it about damn on the money. On Sunday, you said, we probably need something to 435, 430. I think it dipped a little bit below 430 for a little bit on Monday. Now Tuesday, we're seeing it around 434, 435-ish. It's tickling around those areas, but it's got a pretty big range right now. But along with that, another thing you said last week or on Sunday was you believe it's going to bounce to all-time highs by the end of September. So that's kind of what you kind of said last week. How do you feel about what happened yesterday? Do you still feel like those future predictions are true? How exactly are you approaching it, and how bad did yesterday suck for you?
Yeah, yesterday was tough.
Yeah, same.
We talked about it, and it was still tough. So it actually happened faster than I originally thought it would happen. I thought that we would go through this week and closer to today start to flush. I didn't think that we would
I remember
immediately gap down.
texting our podcast group chat and saying, hey, there's a level that you talked about on the Sunday episode, and it was pre-market. It was like 7:30 in the morning. It was already like 4:36 or whatever. And then, just an hour later after open, it's already down to like 4:30.
Yeah, the daily chart on SPY right now is quite interesting because it's just that big gap down. So it did happen faster than I really thought it would. So I was planning to put some hedges on, and I really didn't even get that opportunity. But you know what? It's fine because at the end of the day, there's a few things that are going on here. One, everybody was talking about China and Evergrande, and that's what everyone is saying is the real fear behind what happened in the market. I think it was a combination of a few different things. Being Evergrande, I mean the Hang Seng. I totally messed that up. But the Sang got killed like 15% the one day. And at the end of the day, all major economies are so tightly wound that if one of them is down, even honestly above 5%, the other ones are going to take a hit too. So I think that combined with closing underneath the 50-day, plus Thursday we have the FOMC meeting, and that's when the Fed's going to talk about if they're going to taper the federal buying or not. And so I think the combination of all those things happening just really gave us that perfect storm.
It was like a bunch of bad catalysts all happening at once, and all happening right around that rise that breaks the 50-day EMA. All right, so before we kind of get into the rest, and I should have brought this up, before, could you kind of explain, and sorry if I'm butchering the name, the Evergrande. Why did that affect our market so much? I know what you just said about them all being kind of intertwined, but why was that such a big deal for the Chinese markets to begin with?
Yeah, so Evergrande is China's largest, like it's not even close, developer in largest Chinese developer, and I mean essentially they're broke. Like when you come down to it, they're broke. They think of that like 2008, like they're insolvent. They're going to be toast. And why this is important is because a lot of developers take on massive amounts of debt. Just like, really, think of it like a bank. They take on massive amounts of debt, and when you can't cover your debt, you're insolvent and you can't pay, and most of the time you go bankrupt. But again, it comes back to, for all my fans out there, too big to fail. It comes back to that. If the largest Chinese developer goes down, it could probably bring down the banks. And I mean, not only does it bring down the banks, but then, who pays for the mortgages? Do they go bankrupt? Do you kick the people out? There's so many. Nobody really cares about Evergrande. Nobody cares about Evergrande. It's the shock effect out that really matters. So, I mean, what they're saying is that nobody can really put a number on how much Evergrande owes, but inside USD, it's basically estimated around a few $100 billion. I mean, think about that. That one property developer owns a few $100 billion USD. So again, it's really not so much Evergrande. Nobody cares about Evergrande. It's the shock effects, because on balance sheets, the way that the banks and other people can, the banks and the creditors can put it on their balance sheet as this is money owed to them. Okay, so it's not a sunken cost. But if Evergrande goes bankrupt, well, that now becomes a sunken cost, which then destroys the balance sheets. Because again, we're not talking about $1 billion. $1 billion would hurt, but we're talking about hundreds of billions. Like, we truly don't know the number. This comes back to when we think about the 2008 housing market. Everybody always talks about the bazooka, okay? And the reason that they called it a bazooka and they didn't put a number on it was because they truly didn't know the number. And this is kind of like what Evergrande, this is pretty much where they're at. They're the largest, and I'm trying to put this in perspective of how large this is, but when you think about it, Evergrande, okay, would bring down a few Chinese banks. But the thing is that some of these Chinese banks, everybody does, all the banks do hold international business. So then you have like this shock absorber that Evergrande is like the eye of the storm, and it goes to the banks, which then goes international banks. And again, if you think about it, is that I wouldn't be shocked if a few of these larger Chinese banks end up coming down with Evergrande, because again, they don't know the number. They don't know how big this is. This is a few $100 billion, but does that mean, $100 billion would suck. $400 billion would be bringing down whole entire banks. So the question is that does the Chinese government bail out the banks? Do they bail out Evergrande? Or do they just let the pieces fall? That's really where we're at. We're kind of inside this limbo. So, and because everybody does international work together, that's why all the markets across the board were hit. Now, everybody's been speculating this would happen for a pretty long time. So it's not really one of those things. Like, if this had really truly come out of nowhere, Sang would be down probably 30%. Our index, the Nas and the Dow would be down, probably 5% minimum, 6% minimum. But again, this was kind of known that this was coming, so it really wasn't a shock to anybody that paid attention, macro. Evergrande, if you guys want to read a really good report, the last Bears STA1 on Twitter puts together this long thread. I didn't have time to read the entire thing, but it seems like he pretty much knows his stuff. And, Evergrande for years has kind of known this was coming and that they were over leveraged. So to that perspective, I personally think somebody has to get bailed out. I don't think it'll be Evergrande because I just think they're too big to fail, that they have to fail. But I think that some of the banks that own a lot of, that Evergrande owes a lot to, I believe that they will probably be bailed out, mostly because I think they have to be. But we'll see. We'll see. It'll be really interesting. Now, the other part to this is SPY. Okay, SPY got kind of killed on Monday. We're seeing a pretty good bounce back, or I don't want to say a bounce back, but we're seeing, kind of levels taper off and kind of chill. VIX is at 24 as we're talking about this, which is late day Tuesday. If VIX gets underneath 21, I would say that the thesis that we put together, that we would see this retrace back down to 430 and then pinball to all-time highs. If VIX goes underneath 21 and the Fed says that they're not going to taper, then I think we're back at all-time highs by the end of the month, maybe first week of October.
So a lot of what our market does, a lot of what SPY is going to do depends on how China handles this.
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's how China handles it, but there will be a reaction depending on how China handles it, or if they don't handle it. If they do come out and say that they're going to bail out the banks or they're going to bail out Evergrande, then I expect now let's just imagine this scenario. Let's just say that they come out and they say that they're going to bail out Evergrande, and all at the same time the Fed says that they're not going to taper, buying. I mean, we would gap up, I think. We would gap up because that it takes out the unknown, okay? Hope and fear sells, okay? And a lot of times, so if you take out the fear of Evergrande failing and you take out the fear of the tapering, then I think that we would gap up.
Now it's like, it's already failed and the market's done what it did. And now it's, going to do, and it's already kind of rebounding a little. So has the American market already said, hey, this happened, now let's move on with what we do?
Yeah, pretty much. It comes down to like the 24-hour news cycle. Now, the untangling of all this, of Evergrande, will take some time, but it'll be how the Chinese government reacts to it inside the short term. Like if they come, they don't need to have a plan right now, but it's going to be, if they come out, there's two ways that they could take this. They could take it and come out and say, hey, we're going to untangle this for the next few, let's say till the end of the year. But we're definitely not going to bail them out. Okay. There's that way. Okay, and then there's the other way that says, again, we're going to take the next quarter to see what's up and untangle this mess. But we've already discussed a potential bailout or a potential intervening of Evergrande. Then then that would be probably a good thing. So I do think that there's still an initial reaction that needs to come in, and based on that, SPY will react. But overall, I think that now now that the news is broke and it's out there, that as long as they don't say like, yeah, it's 900 billion or something crazy. Like I think I saw some other things out there, like they're estimating around 200 to 300 billion, something like that USD. If it's something like 700, 800 billion, that would be, and they say that they're not going to bail anybody out. Yeah, then we would get hit again for sure.
Can you think of any super bullish sentiment for the market that doesn't involve something bad ending?
Yeah, I think for pretty much, see, the thing that really scared a lot of people was that, and this is where, we can get into this, but the Fed, so the people that work for the Fed, had sold all of their stocks 2 weeks ago or something. And they had said that because they didn't want to be in conflict, they sold all of their stocks. Again, the market's up how much? how big of a percentage is that the last 16 months? So it's kind of interesting that now they say that they don't want to be, inside a conflict. So they sell now. So between that and the Fed meeting happening Thursday, I think it really scared people. And then you took Evergrande, and that was like the cherry on top. So I think that pretty much if they say that they're not going to taper anything, then that would be pretty bullish, because that's what I think everybody's scared of right now, is that if they come out and they say that interest rates are rising, that they're going to taper spending, then the market would get hit. But inside the same token, I almost feel like that's kind of starting to get priced in, and people are expecting that, so that if they don't taper and they don't raise interest rates, then people will it'd almost be seen as like a bullish surprise.
So yesterday I saw Bloomberg tweet something, and you even responded to it. It said, JP Morgan strategist said today's sell-off is technically driven and therefore represents a buying opportunity. Basically saying, hey, you look at technicals, stocks dip, you buy them, that's good. That's, does it just seem like they're kind of just being like, hey, little retail traders, buy the dip. You guys are always saying buy the dip. Now you should buy the dip.
Yeah, I think that is such bullshit. Like that made me so mad, because it's one of those things where like I feel like I just want to look up at them and be like, do you think I'm fucking stupid? Like, do I look that stupid to you? Like, it's I don't know. It makes me mad when it's one of those things where you can just black and white, like, this is why the market's down, especially when you have something like Evergrande going on. You have Evergrande going on, and you have the Fed, you have the Fed fear mongering on Thursday. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh, JP Morgan strategist says buy the dip. Okay, I'll buy the dip. Like, it's just one of those things that pisses me off when it's like, oh, buy the dip. It's just technically driven. It's not. It has nothing to do with the Fed meeting on Thursday. It has nothing to do with the fact that Chinese banks might be crippling. It just makes me so mad that this is allowed to happen. And it's really, of course you're not going to name the strategist, but it's one of those things where it's like, I just can't believe that this is allowed to be said inside the open market. That's like someone on a small cap coming out, when earnings report is down 70% and saying, oh, this is just a slight hiccup inside this is actually bullish, the revenue being down 60%. Like, it's just like it's because I say so. That's what they're saying. Because I say so, the market's going to go back up. I just think it's such bullshit. And it's like one of those things where it's like, do you think I'm that fucking stupid? It just makes me mad.
Do you think do they expect this to have any effect on the market? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what investor like has enough money that is like actually taking that as sound advice, saying,
It's probably more for their clients. Like, if their clients are watching the news or something and they see the market 6% off highs, that's probably that's what I would guess. Like, it's probably not like, Dan and Hugh, buy the dip, bitches. Like, that's it's probably more like, hey, Mr. Wilson, who has 50 million with Chase, don't you worry. This is just a technical flush. Go back to working hard and giving us your money. That's probably what it is. But it just pisses me off because it's like we can't think for ourselves. Like, that's what I hate. That I hate that. Like, I'm nowhere near the smartest person in the world, but if you think that I don't know at the Fed meeting on Thursday is scaring people, that Evergrande is not a pile of shit, it's just annoying. It's more like, dude, like it's just annoying. Like, I can't think for myself.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ethical. Personally.
Okay, well, going forward, you kind of mentioned like you had this bullish sentiment heading forward, and you kind of talked about what was necessary for it to, continue forward. So you're still thinking potentially 455 if everything plays out properly by the end of the month.
Yeah, I really think that we're not that. Okay, so I really think that it's going to depend on Thursday's Fed meeting. If the Fed says that they are not doing anything differently, I mean, yeah, no, no problem at all. I think that that will be at all-time highs. I really think that it depends on the Fed meeting and this Evergrande situation. If no news comes out on Evergrande, I actually think that that's bullish. Make your 24-hour news
forget
cycle.
about it. Yeah.
Exactly. Until it comes up like, let's say April or something.
Not a problem till then.
Yeah, exactly. And then with the Fed, I really think that it's just because the Fed sold all of their stock. The Fed employees sold all their stock all at the same time that this Fed meeting is coming. And people for the last 16 months have been saying that during this fall is when, we should start to look at raising interest rates. So I really think that it's really just like a timing thing. But I really don't think that we're at a point to where they would raise interest rates. Inflation really hasn't gone up too much to the point to where it's like scary.
Okay, my mom just texted me and said she sold all her Schwab. After she doubled it, I've been insisting that she sell it, and fucking, and because she's been wanting to, get into.
You said she took that from like 50 grand to 90 grand, right?
Well, over the course of 20 years, it was probably down to like $3,000 back in 2000. So, diamond hands will get you somewhere. But no, yeah. $3,000 to 90 grand is not that bad. Yeah. So now I just have to, finally open her TD account. But I'll get, she's been begging me for a while. Do it for your parents.
Target date Roth. Does Mom and Knight have a Roth?
Probably not. I don't know though. I think she's probably a 401k gal.
The pharmacist, always the 401kers.
Yeah. But so I guess so you're expecting this kind of bullish market. Are you and I know you even mentioned last week about penny stocks. You saw they'd continue being hot. You saw some obviously take some big dips yesterday, as they will. But even on some like CEI today, coming back strong, even ended the day strong. Power Hour was the hot time on Monday.
Yeah, I still think that, when you look at some of these stocks, they've just gotten absolutely killed over the last few months. And I really think that we're going to have a pretty good rally into the end of the year. If you guys remember last year, it was kind of a similar situation to where it was tough. It was tough. It was tough during September, and then it was like October. You remember SPAC? What was it, SPAC and Fisker and all that? When Fisker was SPAC, it got killed from like 16 to 8, and then it ended up going like 8 to 20. So I really think that we're kind of setting up the same kind of way. I don't know if it'll be as hot because SPACs were kind of a different beast, but I think that we're setting up for a really high. I think weed is going to be super hot into the end of the year. Maybe not right away, but mid-October, mid-November, maybe mid-October, late October into the end of the year. I think weed goes on a pretty big run. And just in general, most of these bios out there, there's a lot of bios trading at 50% of where they were, and not much from a catalyst standpoint has changed. And you're seeing some pretty good accumulation around some of these bio names. And if bio's always the first to go, because remember, when we're talking about penny stocks and we're talking about small caps, speculative investments get hit the hardest first. And inside those speculative investments, what gets hit the hardest of the speculative investments is the most speculative, which is going to be your bios, because again, it's highest risk, highest reward. So most of them have been killed. But when we see a rally, those are the first ones to rally, and they rally the hardest. So I think it's going to go from like bios to, maybe weeds and EVs into the end of the year. And I think that we're just going to see a pretty nice small cap rally across. I'm looking at some of these market caps, and these market caps that were 300, 400, 500 million are now like 80 million. Yeah, we could put some Atlas guys together and buy some of these companies. So I really think that, it's good to be safe than sorry. It's good to be safer than sorry, but to be ready, because the end of the year probably gets pretty hot. We've seen some pretty good intraday runners. What I would love to see is that I would love sector sector rotations and sector runs, because that's when you can play sympathies on sympathies, and that's when you can just sit back and put 10% of your account across the board and just let them go. Like that's really my favorite kind of trading, and that's what I think we're getting set up to do, because these things have just been killed.
Do you think the bios, are they just rallying the fastest, the hardest, and the first because they're the most beaten down, or just because people are excited to get back in them whenever they sold the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I always, in my experience, from what I've learned, is that they always run first because they were the most beaten down, and it just comes back to, they're the highest risk, highest reward most of the time. So when small caps get killed, they get killed the worst. When small caps start to run, they go the furthest because most of the time they're beaten down. I mean, I'm looking at some of these small caps, and I mean they're literally down like 65% inside the last few months, which is and nothing really has changed too much for the catalyst. So it's those ones that don't have any dilution weighting, high cash trading, especially if they're trading underneath cash per share. Let's just say the cash per share is like $1.30, and it's trading at $1. I mean, that's pretty good risk to reward if you can find a decent catalyst and a need for the market.
So, and you're good at this, so I think it'd be a good way to kind of end the episode would be, let's say you just heard what you said. You want to find the stock with the good catalyst, with the good cash per share. So first things first is finding the cash per share. Like, where should they go look for that? And then I guess following it up, we'll find out how exactly we'll find a catalyst potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I love FinViz, and I was actually having this conversation with
FinViz, for anyone that doesn't know, is a website, and it's the one where everyone always has those big. If the market's red, they have the picture where everything's red on it and one thing's green. That's what FinViz is. That's where everyone gets it. If FINVIZ.com.
Yeah, and so I was having this conversation with Mr. Cart Morris on Twitter, and the best way that I like to do it, so I actually don't mind stocks inside a downtrend, especially if I can put a timeline to the catalyst. So let's just say that something has a merger by end of Q3, and they have $2 cash per share, and it's basically grinded from $3 down to $1.50, and I know that they have a merger by the end of Q3. That gives us really good risk reward because we can put a timeline together. We know that it's trading underneath cash, and as long as the share structure isn't too crappy for the merger, we know pretty much where it should go on approval of the merger. So then, the biggest thing with stocks is mitigating risk. Okay, so what's your risk? The merger doesn't get approved. Okay, so then what's our cash per share? Boom, it's already trading underneath cash per share. That gives us a really good risk to reward because you're already trading lower than what your risk is or what it's supposed to be in theory. So now you can say, all right, this is the share structure. What will it be trading at if approved? That's a slam dunk. Okay, and then you have to look, and then of course, you read through the merger and find out if what's the chances of an offering, how much cash they have. Yeah, there's risk, of course, but again, I love things inside a downtrend or that have just gotten beaten up. A catalyst with a timeline. A catalyst that is a need for the market, or a catalyst that is fundamentally going to change the company, and a hot sector. So like I said, weed, bios, those are all sectors that if small caps start to go or a weed bill comes through, that entire sector is going to go. So especially something with a lot of sympathies, those sectors love to go. That's really where I like to make my bread and butter, because if I know that bios are hot, I can find 3 bios trading underneath cash with a semi-good catalyst, and I can just throw 5, 10, 15% of my account into each of them. And if one goes, it's one of those, it's like that saying that the tide lifts all boats. If one of them goes, they're all going to go. And then, somebody else finds the catalyst, and it just starts off like this really nice runner where it's like a nice fluid 20, 30, 40%. And it's most of the time risk-free, stress-free. And then once it starts trading closer to cash, then you can take some off. You've made your 30%. So that's what I personally love. And you can do all of that on FinViz.
So would you say, it could be as simple as, and I mean, you without even using FinViz, I mean, you can just Google Wolf cash per share, and it'll come up with a balance sheet. It'll say just about everything you need: total debt, current ratio, total cash per share, and so it'll basically give you a little rundown of the balance sheet right there. Would you say it can be as simple as, let's say you like the old thing, weed and EVs. You think weed and EVs are going to be hot in November. You make a list of all your weed stocks, all your EV stocks, and you put their cash per share, and then, you wait till it gets around there or under there. Could you just do that? And how far under the cash per share would you want it? Because, I mean, could it be trading around cash per share?
Yeah, especially if I really like the catalyst. Like, I keep using the example of merger, but if I really think that this merger has a good share structure, that it makes sense for both companies, nobody's getting screwed or the short end of the stick, and is trading near cash per share, yeah. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me because, again, what's my risk? Fine, cash per share. That's my risk. So even if it's trading 10% above, fine, I'm risking 10%, but if it's approved, it's going to go, 100%? Yeah, I'll take 10 to 1 any time. If any time that I can sit there and say that my risk to reward is 5 to 1, I'm taking that trade 10 out of 10 times.
But
how
can you guarantee yourself that it's not going to go below cash per share? And are you just making that your stop loss?
Yeah, that's what I'm making my stop loss. You definitely can't, you'll never be able to say like it'll never go underneath cash, but that's just a really good baseline for what it should be trading at. So if I'm expecting the merger to be approved, and if the merger is approved, it's worth $5 per share, and it's trading at $1 per share, and the cash per share is $1.50, then I already know that it's trading at a discount right now, even if it's not approved. And then if it does get approved, then great. Then I'm making,
because even priced in, it should be around $2.25 or so.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I mean is that, and again, you're never going to mitigate all risk unless you're insider trading, which I mean.
You mean all reward?
Yeah. So you're never going to mitigate all risk, but with something trading close to cash per share with a good catalyst, and that catalyst is on a vote, or that catalyst, is just time waiting, I mean, that's really good risk to reward. And that's what I love. Like I said, 5 to 1 risk to reward. I'll take that any day of the week.
All right, guys. So I think that should cover it. Hopefully that should clear up anything on finding some stocks based on their cash per shares, and little summing up some balance reports, knowing what SPY is going to do and what it just did, and Ariana Grande or Evergrande or whatever the hell it was. What's going on?
Disney CEO just said dividend won't return until pandemic ends.
Oh, that's pretty bad for them, huh?
Yeah. Wait, let me see what it's doing while we're just chilling on here. Holy fuck. Disney's down 4%. Disney's getting killed. Okay. For while we're still on the episode here, if Disney gets below 160, I'm buying it. It's a no-brainer buy. Listen, wow, Disney is literally getting walloped as we're speaking right now. So just from a chart perspective, 167 is support on Disney. I mean, this thing was trading at 200 not too long ago. I mean, Disney anywhere near 150 is a hold for your kids. It's a no-brainer. I mean,
yeah,
so
y'all
it sounds
seen The
like
Mandalorian. People love that shit. Baby Yoda.
I mean, it sounds like Disney pretty much. It sounds like the CEO.
I mean, who's
basically,
to say the pandemic's over? I mean, you ask fucking like Donald Trump. He's never started. You ask fucking other people, it's June 2020 still.
What pandemic? Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, just for our listeners, this is one of those where you can put your parents in. If Disney comes close to 150 off this news within the next few days or even the next few weeks, if it comes close to 150, you can put your parents in, you can put your kids in, and it'll be a generational hold. It's a no-brainer. With what they're doing, they've moved away from the theme parks. The theme parks are still a really good revenue generator, but the innovation that Disney has done overall, we talked about it in Reno a little bit, so sorry if my Reno homies are hearing this again, but what they're doing, they have so much cash that it's kind of like Amazon and Apple, that they can just move into whatever space they want. I wouldn't be shocked if Disney moved into VR space, and then it's like I wouldn't be shocked if Disney started creating like their own, TV station, stuff like that.
Disney is probably one of the first people that ever really did VR shit, because you go to Disney and you fucking probably had those big ass things. I don't know, I haven't gone to Disney in forever, but.
No, but that's what I mean, is that they moved away from the theme parks and everything. So, and they're just innovating in technology. Look at Tesla. Tesla's a technology stock. If Disney starts being categorized as a technology stock, I mean, this will be trading at $500-$600 a share, no problem. So if it comes down to that 150 level, I'll be there. My parents will be there. My sister will be there. We'll be buying there. Yeah, that's a generational hold.
One thing I always really liked that BSS said, buy, sell, short, he'd always mention the same people that say Tesla is a car company are the same people that said Apple is a computer company.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's what I mean, is that Disney's innovating. They're an innovating company. And if you think that what? You're not going to have a dividend for a year or two? Okay, fine. Like, that's nothing. I'd rather take the cheap shares $20 cheaper than have the dividend anyway. Give it to me cheaper. It's a generational hold.
What do you think about dividends? I mean, like, obviously dividends are like nice and all, but some things like UWMC, if it had a 40-cent dividend, let's say it dips to 4, I mean, aren't you basically getting a guaranteed 10% return on your investment every year whenever the dividend hits?
I mean, so for me, like, okay, Warren Buffett makes like $800 million a year off of dividends, but that's because he's risking a stupid amount of money. But he has so much money that as long as he just makes that dividend, it doesn't matter. For me, I don't have enough money to just be like, oh, like the dividend's fine. Like, that's more than enough money to live on. So to me, the dividend is less about the amount and what it tells me about the healthiness of the company fundamentally. That's what's way more important to me, is that, okay, if they can give me a 40-cent dividend, and if they increase it, let's call it every 5 years, that's what that tells me, is that company is growing. That company knows how to handle their cash flow. They know that the company is healthy. I rarely care if the dividend's 30 cents, 40 cents. What I care way more about is the healthiness of the company.
Gotcha.
And what it signals to me.
All right, guys. Well, there's an extra 5 free minutes of pennies going in raw on top of your first 32 free minutes. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on Sunday. And I think we actually have the Reno episode coming out soon if our little editors are hard at work at the North Pole. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. 5 stars, like, subscribe. Nice to us on Twitter, etc. Love y'all. Bye.